Well, hello, it's Boards Dude, and yes, I'm back with another video, and it is a video review of the Iron Factory 44 City Commander, or rather, Legend Scale, somewhat IDW Inspired Ultra Magnus. Now, when I say it's IDW Inspired, there's definitely hints and touches of the IDW design, such as the skull face on the chest, which is very prominent with the IDW design of Ultra Magnus, but I feel that there is enough flair and its own design to make this a very much Iron Factory based product. And while I'm not a fan of the IDW Ultra Magnus, for the obvious reasons if you know me well enough, this has been done really well, and in the first impressions when I seen this figure, really impressed me. But let's bring him in a bit closer and have a look at that fantastic head sculpt. Now, it has light piping, just simply put my finger there, and there we go. And the light hits it from every angle and gives some lovely figure photography shots with that light piping. Again, let's have a closer look at that sort of chest plate, and that is the IDW skull face design there, and it looks really good up close and personal. Now, when it comes to the paint on this figure, it's actually very minimalistic. They have been very clever in terms of the colours of plastic they use, and to be fair, with Ultra Magnus, he does have a very basic colour palette, red, white and blue, very Americana. But where they have used paint, such as on the tampos, the paint here works really well, being painted on the blue. The touches of greys, particularly, like I say, on his chest, on his crotch piece, and the little touches on the legs here work really well. So yes, minimalistic paint applications, but where they have been used to the most up degree. When it comes to the profile for Ultra Magnus, it's very well slim, very well done. There's only really one bit of kibble there that I could see as some of his backpack. Not the end of the world there. He still cuts a rather imposing and impressive figure. The sculpting on this figure is also tremendous and done really well, and it really works all the way around, I would say. Yeah, when you get to the back, you unfortunately do get that almost, I guess, Iron Factory trademark when it comes to Screwhole City, but I think it does add to the character of the Ultra Magnus robot figure. All in all, the first impressions of this figure are tremendous, and let's just carry on with the review. Alright, it's articulation time. The head is on a ball joint and can do a full 360. The arm itself can also do a full 360. It is on a shoulder joint as well. His towers can move as part of transformation. You do get a nice bicep cut, and you do also get a nice rather high bend at the elbow. The fingers themselves are articulated individually and do have fantastic degree of bend, but what I will say is with the thumb on this figure, do be careful, as too much pressure will pop that ball joint. There is an ab crunch here, I guess. It's a funny looking ab crunch, and you do get a full 360. Jesus, that's squeaky at the waist. You do get a thigh cut on the leg, a tremendous bend at the knee. Again, there's that squeak. That seems to be a staple mark of third-party figures. A fantastic ankle rocker, which is brilliant. You also get some limited toe articulation, but that's for transformation. And if you do lift up the skirts on the leg, you can bring up the leg and put it back to a degree, but that's stuck there obviously in range due to the way the figure is designed. But as you've seen there, some fantastic ratchets, some interesting squeaking, but when it comes to posing and of course figure photography, everything there, I would say, and more is covered for that articulation need. I'm going to give you a very quick size comparison. So here he is with Siege Optimus Prime, and there he is with the Mech Fantoys Huge Dragon, or their version of Omega Supreme. Gives you a rough idea where he sits in terms of legends and also in terms of the official Hasbro line. And I've changed the camera view, so you know what that means. Yep, it is time to transform the figure. So the first thing we're going to do is take off his shoulder cannons, and they just really pop out. Nice and easy, shouldn't be a problem at all. The transformation itself here is fairly fun. There is obviously an element of frustrating parts, such as what you're seeing me doing with the fingers here. We do have to be careful, they have to be positioned fairly well. What we do need to do is unpack and then repack this cab piece. Now, I'm not going to obviously go step by step with this figure, but you'll see the sort of most important parts of transformation here. And it's, like I say, it's a fun transformation, but does have its rather frustrating moments. So here we go, so everything should sit like that, nice and flush. Like I say, that's the most frustrating part of this transformation. Everything else is fairly easy. You need to push these wheels on this mechanism that flips round. See, it certainly helps if you have smaller hands, or smaller fingers even, to do this transformation. I will obviously jump cut at some stages, I think, here, but I'll make sure that I do cover the most important and perhaps more fiddly parts of the transformation, like you've seen there. Now, when it comes to the arms, you want them to be bent and looking like this. Obviously, try and make these fingers as flush as you can. And then we're just going to fold them in, and you see this tab here. That's going to plug into the port there. And that's that part done. Now, we do have to do the squeaky waist turn, which I've done there. And what we need to do is unclip these white panels on the legs. Gonna need to flip the wheels here, so as you can see what I've done, and then push the white part of the foot in there. Now, so it looks like that. And once you're happy with everything, you can just clip the white parts back in, and again, 2 tabs and 2 ports. We just want to clip them there and just fold that crotch piece down so it's laying as flush as possible. What you can do is take this part here, if I can't get it. Again, this is where a little tool would have been handy. So that comes out like so, and these just simply tab into here. Nice and straightforward so far, and then you just need to adjust everything. A lot of adjusting going on this figure, but it's fine. Now, take these out of the hinge, just pull them out like that. There we go. And I would unhook that as much as you can, I would say, because we just want to make sure everything's going to tab in to position when we get to that part. So this hook bit here is going to tab into here, and it can be very fiddly, but you can get it in there. So again, This mechanism slides down. This is on a hinge and will hinge forward. And we just tab it in. Make sure everything is flush, and the final part of the transformation is there. And looking at the alt mode, to be honest, I'm quite underwhelmed by his alt mode. It's very Iron Factory-esque, that very sort of clunky looking, futuristic Cybertron-esque design, I guess. It's alright. There's a lot of the detail shown through a bit better in this alt mode, but some of it's equally as hidden, such as the fantastic clear plastic there. Although I suppose if the guns weren't in the way, you'd still see it. I do like the cab. I think that's done very well, but it's probably me personally, obviously being a more G1 Transformers fan and preferring Ultra Magnus' G1 mode, that I just don't like this as much as other people will. It's nice. There's some cool little things that you notice when you're in the alt mode, such as the fact that the tyres themselves are actually rubber, which is really a rare thing these days in Transformers, at least official ones. I don't know what the case is with third parties. And yes, of course, he does roll absolutely fine. For accessories with this figure, you do get a blaster, a rather nice looking blaster with excellent light piping. I love the gunmetal grey that's used, and that touch of blue works really well. And you can also use this gun as Ultra Magnus' hammer by combining these two blasters, which we've already seen. It's just really a case of plugging them at the top here. This isn't a mode that I use personally. I know Ultra Magnus had a hammer in the comics and also in other Transformer shows, but it's not really something that interests me. So I've probably got it looking wrong here, but that gives you an idea of what the hammer mode looks like. And of course, the elephant in the room, the figure that I hate the most, or rather the character I hate the most in Transformers lore, is of course Minimus Ambus. But if I look at this figure objectively as a toy and as a Transformer, it's actually really good for its size. Now if we take away the Jesse Ventura chain gun, there's really a lot going on here. There's loads of detail for a figure in this scale. I mean, just to give you an example of size on this guy, here he is with a Titan's Return wheelie. So he's very small, but he does have a nice level of articulation. It is mostly ball joints, and the alt mode itself is serviceable, I guess. I don't really know if this was his alt mode in the comics, because this guy just doesn't appeal to me at all. I don't like the IDW representation of Ultra Magnus. I never have, and I do joke about it quite often in the Transformers sort of community circles, and it's fine, you know. Again, I do have to stress it is a joke. I know some people think that I take it seriously, but it's not really that much of an issue. I just personally don't like the fact that this little gremlin looking person hides in basically a dead Transformer shell and pretends to be him. Now, I'm sure there's probably more to the character in the comics, but yeah, for me, nah, it's just not something I'm interested in. But for Minimus Ambus fans out there, you're getting a very good representation of the character, and yes, he can fit in the Iron Factory Ultra Magnus figure, but I'm not going to do that one. I definitely recommend that you pick up this figure for your collection, especially if you're a Legends collector, but especially if you're an Ultra Magnus collector like myself. The build quality on this figure is second to none. The plastic feels heavy, it just has a nice quality feel to it. Little nice additional touches such as the individual posable fingers, the rubber tyres on the wheels give it that nice premium feel. I haven't experienced any QC issues with this figure in places you would expect, such as the tabs getting stress marks. That's not happened at all, and I have transformed this a fair few times. The only QC issues, I guess, if you were looking for some, would be that squeakiness in the waist joint and the legs, but that's very common with third-party figures. I feel I've definitely experienced that personally. The transformation for me was incredibly fiddly, and like I say, I have done this multiple times. Yeah, sometimes it's a bit more difficult to do it on camera, but just getting that front cab set up and also just remembering the position of the arms to transform him into his alt mode can be a bit frustrating and takes some time. The alt mode itself as well, I felt, was a bit underwhelming, but if you like this IDW style Ultra Magnus design as well as that alt mode, then that won't be a barrier for you. What might be a barrier for you and a lot of Transformers fans is if you equate price to size, because this figure is very expensive for the size it is, but the quality is there and I can't stress that enough. But if you expect a masterpiece scaled sized figure for the price you're paying for this Iron Factory figure, then I'm afraid you'll definitely not want to pick this up. But overall, it's a recommend from me, and he'll go nicely in my Ultra Magnus shelf. Minimus Ambus will go back in the box. The individually digit figures, and it's just really having that patience until everything sits flush. Like, oh, fuck me, Ultra Magnus, get your fucking head in, you absolute bell end.